Hi, I'm Brenda Anholtz, Professor of Communication Studies, and today we're going to be talking about introductions and conclusions. Okay, first of all, the purpose of an introduction is to draw your audience into your topic, and then you want to give your audience a reason to listen to your speech. And the purpose of introductions is also to tell your audience what you're going to talk about during your speech. And the purpose of a conclusion is to provide some closure and wrap up your speech for your audience. And finally, in the case of a persuasive speech, you want to motivate your audience to make their final appeal. Okay, so there are multiple techniques for opening or closing with impact, and they're the creative part that I really love about speech writing and speech delivery. So open with impact statements are the very first thing you say in your introduction. So you don't say, "Hi, today my name's Brenda and I'm going to be talking about introductions." You want to use something creative like we have here in the list. And it's also the same techniques that you're going to use to close with impact. So your very first words out of your mouth and the last words out of your mouth are going to be one of these techniques. So let me go through them. The first one is a quote. I love quotes because they're usually short. With the internet, you can find a quote that's related to your topic. And if you're doing a speech on a person, then you can often find something that they've said, and it's a really wonderful way to open. For example, if you were doing a speech on being anti-racist or being an ally, you could start with a quote from Maya Angelou. In a racist society, it is not enough to be non-racist. We must be anti-racist. And you can use the same technique to conclude your speech, and there are quotes that lend themselves to being conclusions as well. For example, in a speech on the life and art of Frida Kahlo, the student concluded with, "I hope the leaving is joyful, and I hope never to return." And those were really lovely ways to open and close with impact. Anecdotal stories are also a fantastic way to open and close a speech. So if you were going to do a speech on euthanasia, you might give a story of a family who was faced, with a catastrophic illness or accident of a loved one, and you could set the scene for what this family was facing, talk about euthanasia, and then you can conclude with how the family resolved this issue and what they did in this case. I think illustrations are like examples, and you can use imagery to paint a picture for an audience, or you can arouse some curiosity. For example, I had this sample from a student recently. It is the most common chronic disease in the United States, controllable but incurable. It's a symptomless disease, and you can have it for years and never know it until it kills you. Some 40 million Americans have this disease, and 300,000 will die from it before the year is out. Odds are that 1 in 5 of us in this classroom have it. What am I talking about? No, not cancer, not AIDS. I'm talking about hypertension, high blood pressure. So that's a great way to create or arouse that curiosity. A startling fact or statistic, I had another student who gave a speech recently that said in 2015, according to the Sentencing Project, that African Americans are 5 times more likely to be arrested than are white Americans, and in some states, nearly 10% more likely than whites. And so that's another startling statistic to draw us into perhaps reforming racial profiling. And then finally, reference to an event, an occasion, or personal experience. Even preceding speeches. My very favorite is probably reference to a historical event, otherwise known as allusion. And that is illustrated here by Leonardo DiCaprio in his speech on climate change. Let's take a look.
In the next 60 seconds, I'm going to show you one of the fastest ways to become a millionaire.
President Abraham Lincoln was also thinking of bold action 150 years ago when he said, "The dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present, as our case is new, so we must think anew and act anew We must disenthrall ourselves, and then we shall save our country. He was speaking before the U.S. Congress to confront the defining issue of his time, slavery. Everyone knew it had to end, but no one had the political will to stop it. Remarkably, his words ring as true today when applied to the defining crisis of our time, climate change. As a UN messenger of peace, I have traveled all...
Okay, now let's take a look at the next speech that I have is Dr. Jane Chen. She uses visual imagery, and then later into the introduction, she uses an anecdotal story to humanize her topic. So let's take a look at this speech.
Please close your eyes and open your hands. Now imagine what you could place in your hands. An apple, maybe your wallet. Now open your eyes. What about a life? What you see here is a premature baby. He looks like he's resting peacefully, but in fact he's struggling to stay alive because he can't regulate his own body temperature. This baby is so tiny he doesn't have enough fat on his body to stay warm. Sadly, 20 million babies like this are born every year around the world. 4 million of these babies die annually. But the bigger problem is that the ones who do survive grow up with severe long-term health problems. The reason is because in the first month of a baby's life, its only job is to grow. If it's battling hypothermia, its organs can't develop normally, resulting in a range of health problems from diabetes to heart disease to low IQ. Imagine, many of these problems could be prevented if these babies were just kept warm. That is the primary function of an incubator. But traditional incubators require electricity and cost up to $20,000, so you're not going to find them in rural areas of developing countries. As a result, parents resort to local solutions like tying hot water bottles around their babies' bodies or placing them under light bulbs like the ones you see here, methods that are both ineffective and unsafe. I've seen this firsthand over and over again. On one of my first trips to India, I met this young woman, Savita, who had just given birth to a tiny premature baby, Rani. She took her baby to the nearest village clinic, and the doctor advised her to take Rani to a city hospital so she could be placed in an incubator. But that hospital was over 4 hours away, and Savita didn't have the means to get there. So her baby died. Inspired by this story and dozens of other similar stories like this, my team and I realized what was needed was a local solution, something that could work without electricity, that was simple enough for a mother or a midwife to use, given that the majority of births still take place in the home. We needed something that was portable, something that could be sterilized and reused across multiple babies, and something ultra low cost compared to the $20,000 that an incubator in the US costs.
Okay, those were some great examples of some wonderful introductions that drew the audience in right away. Okay, introductions also have a connect with audience sentence or a reason to listen. For example, take a moment to think. When was the last time you saw an Asian American star as a lead role in a mainstream film? And a credibility statement, also a very important one. It helps the audience to understand why we should be listening to you about this topic. So it gives the speaker's expertise or personal experience. So you might talk about how you're a nursing major and you're particularly interested, in learning more about respiratory diseases. Or your connection, to this particular topic as well. From my own research or work with kids in after-school programs is a great example. Okay, The thesis sentence is the next sentence in your introduction. It's a single declarative sentence that is the central idea of your speech. And I often like to look at them. You know, some people say you can write a thesis in 7 words, and you can. But if you think about it as topic and direction or topic and position, it will help. For example, the life and art of Frida Kahlo has influenced art and fashion. So you have a topic, the life and art of Frida Kahlo, and the direction or position that you're going. Position, I think, is often used for persuasive speeches, but direction, it could be the influence of art and fashion. Preview sentence. A preview sentence is a single sentence telling your audience the main points of the speech. For example, we must first shed light on the problem of over-policing of Black and brown communities and then explore the possible solutions that will end the practice of racial profiling. Okay, so now the parts of the conclusion. First of all, we want to transition into the conclusion by saying in conclusion or in summary or to wrap up today. And then you want to review the thesis and main points, so tell everybody what you just talked about. And then it's your final opportunity to make your persuasive appeal. And then use your close with impact. Let me give you an example. Here's a compilation of conclusions from some TEDx events. This is 4 minutes.
Tomorrow's future is sitting in our classrooms, and they are our responsibilities. That means everyone in here and those who are watching the screen. We must believe in their brilliance and remind them by teaching them that there indeed is power in education. Thank you.
That's the beauty of using everyday materials. It's very easy to customize using paper and fabric. So even if you don't like Flappy Bird, you can still make your own game.
So our game is about Justin Bieber because he's been speeding, and the object is to prevent him from getting caught by the LAPD. Yeah, but he's changing, so we're a part of his posse.
Thank you.
So here's what I learned. We're all going to have big losses in our lives. Maybe a job or a career, relationships, love, our youth. We're going to lose our health, people we love. These kinds of losses are out of our control. They're unpredictable, and they bring us to our knees. And so I say, let them. Fall to your knees. Be humbled. Let go of trying to change it or even wanting it to be different. It just is. And then there's space. And in that space, feel your vulnerability, what matters most to you, your deepest intention. And be curious to connect to what and who is really here, awake and alive. It's what we all want. Let's take the opportunity to find something beautiful in the unknown, in the unpredictable, and even in the awful. Thank you.
But I've come to realize after working with thousands of other people's kids and raising 2 kids of my own, my kids aren't bonsai trees. They're wildflowers of an unknown genus and species. And it's my job to provide a nourishing environment, to strengthen them through chores, and to love them so they can love others and receive love. And the college, the major, the career, that's up to them. My job is not to make them become what I would have them become, but to support them in becoming their glorious selves. Thank you.
The great writer Khalil Gibran says, "Out of suffering have emerged the greatest souls. The massive characters are seared with scars." I believe that in this education revolution that we are talking about, we need to invite the souls of the young people that we work with, and once they're able to refine, identify their grit, resilience, and character that they've already developed, their academic performance will improve. Let's believe in young people. Let's provide them the right kinds of resources. I'll tell you what my teacher did for me. She believed in me so much that she tricked me into believing in myself. Thank you.
Okay, we have reviewed introductions and conclusions. Thank you very much.